This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
I'm Roby Brock. Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Capital Edition. It is day 2 of the 93rd Arkansas General Assembly. It was a bit of a short day in terms of legislative work at the state capitol, but it was punctuated by Governor Asa Hutchinson's final regular session State of the State address. Behind plexiglass, Governor Hutchinson spoke to the Arkansas House in their chamber. Senators watched from the Senate via live stream. Welcome to a COVID-19 capital. Hutchinson hit these highlights during the speech for what he wants to achieve on the legislative front this session. He said he wanted to work with the legislature on potential changes to his emergency powers, which have been instituted since March due to the pandemic. He asked legislators to pass appropriations to allow new federal funding to be used to get COVID-19 vaccinations to the public in a more timely manner. He noted that infrastructure with the Arkansas Department of Health will have to be improved to allow for a more streamlined vaccination process. By the way, there were 3,209 new COVID-19 cases reported on Tuesday as the governor widened the groups to receive the vaccine to include the staffs of K-12 schools, universities, and daycares starting next Monday. In his legislative speech, the governor also called for passage of a hate crime bill, $30 million for rural broadband, $2,000 teacher pay increases this year and next, and a requirement that a computer science credit be obtained by high school graduates. Hutchinson wants $100 million set aside for long-term reserves, exemptions for the used car tax, and a 4.9% top tax rate for new residents of the state for 5 years. And he pressed for passage of legislation for police departments to be fully funded and to provide better training for officers. He said steps need to be taken to increase oversight and accountability with these police agencies. And we have reaction to the governor's State of the State speech from legislators from a big cross sample of Republicans and Democrats, House members, and Senate members. You can read it all at talkbusiness.net. When we come back, State Senate President Jimmy Hickey joins me for his reaction to the governor's speech and what's on his legislative agenda. And later, KATV's Maureen Glisovic previews the Stand Your Ground legislation, which could get a hearing as early as Wednesday. Stay tuned. Talk Business and Politics is sponsored in part by Capital Advisors Group and...
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.
They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. But if you're looking for something more, Walmart has you covered. We provide quality care, no appointment necessary. Whether you're looking for fresh, healthy groceries to fill your prescription, get a flu shot, or pick up your next pair of glasses, we're standing by with in-store health professionals available across the country to offer patient-first, affordable care whenever you need it. Apples, optional.
Joining me now is State Senator Jimmy Hickey Jr. of Texarkana. He is the Senate President Pro Tem. Senator Hickey, thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. Big day today.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you all having me.
Big day today. The governor giving his State of the State speech. Just want to get you, generally speaking, what did you think of the State of the State speech? Did he hit the right notes? Did he set the right tone for what you think the legislators wanted to hear?
Well, I believe that, what the governor said is what he's been saying, and which is we appreciate because he does have consistency. I agree with most everything. Would be happy to talk about any specifics if we want to try to do that.
Yeah, let's go into some of those. One of the things that he brought up is a big subject that's going to be a discussion between executive powers and working with the legislature during this pandemic. Do you have some specifics that you want to see addressed in that particular arena there? Are there some specific things that you think the governor needs to say, this needs to change, and that you guys want to see happen?
Well, yes, as far as one specific thing, and I'll go into that in a moment. we have some members that have been working on that. They've actually been working with the governor. It's from the Senate side, what I will say is that our members all know that the pandemic is real and it's serious. Everybody basically knows somebody that's been sick or, possibly that's even unfortunately died from what's going on. However, the legislators want to be involved in that process. So, as far as extending the emergency, as the governor brought up in February, I personally don't see any issue with that as long as we've structured some type of legislation, that where we can provide the oversight and have some direction in that, because we are close to our constituents and we hear from them. As far as specifics for myself, the one thing that I have asked the legislators that I know who are working on this, that I have said over and over again, is whatever we structure is actually legislation that after the pandemic, it will probably lay there, it could possibly lay there and not be used for 5 years or 10 years, or we would hope never, but we know that's not realistic, in 30 years. So all that I've asked is that we truly think like our founding fathers, like I keep saying, that we think like them, and that we structure this to the point that our government could operate even on a shoestring if it had to in future years, if legislators could not get here, or possibly even if the executive could not be able to operate. How would we do it at that point? So that is what I've asked for as far as specifics.
Let's talk tax cuts. The governor mentioned tax cuts in his State of the State address today. He laid out two specific proposals, reduction in the used car tax, number one, and number two, this appeal to out-of-state residents to get a tax break on the top income tax bracket for up to 5 years. Let's stick with just those two proposals first. Do you like either one of those proposals?
Well, as far as what I like, sometimes it's gauged by, I'm here to represent the Senate body. Of course, I will always have my opinion on things. As far as the used car tax, the way, and as you probably know, the governor went back and he put the range in from 4,000 to 10,000 after we'd had some discussions. And I thought that was a very prudent way to do it. Because what I've seen in the past, like if you just say, well, anything under, $5,000, is at a lower rate. Basically what that's done from my experience in past times is that it would just cause the price of those cars to go up to that. Because, dealers out there will tell people that, you don't have to pay taxes on this. So it creates more of a demand. Doing it the way the governor is structured like that really makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of proud of the way they've done that. I've said multiple times, and I've told the governor this, I have not been hearing much of an appetite from the legislators, senators, in regards to the lowering the income tax for incoming residents. I think there's more of a desire that, the residents that are within the state, that we try to operate across them to offer more of a broad-based cut, that way.
What would be you live in one of those border towns down there. It has had those income tax exemptions there. But what do you think has the most realistic chance of possibility in terms of tax cuts at this juncture in the session?
Oh, I don't know. I just know that they will. I really don't. I don't know what is most realistic. It's truly one of those things that we are just going to have to get into the process a little bit deeper. We're going to have to have our revenue and tax meetings. We're going to have to work with the House. Senator Sample on the Senate end is revenue and tax, and of course, we just as of yesterday know that Representative Jett is going to be on that end. Going to have to work with Representative Jean as the budget chair on the House end, and Senator Dismaying on the budget end here, because as we all know, when you do tax cut, it also affects your budget. So as of this morning, I had talked to Senator Dismaying, and We had talked about that, and so we know that we are going to have to incorporate revenue tax and budget just to make sure that we're prudent in whatever we do.
The governor mentioned the hate crimes law, which is going to be one of the most contentious and hotly debated topics in this session. You've been on the record as saying you don't fully understand the need for it. He made a pretty compelling argument in his State of the State speech that it is equal. It does go across the boards, cuts across race and gender and age and everything else, sexual orientation. Do you have a clear understanding of what the governor's position is on that now? Has it changed your opinion on it?
Well, and I guess no, not at this point. It's the same thing. And one of the comments, of course, that the governor used in his speech was actually what I've been saying, that I don't understand, why that you would have one enhanced penalty for a certain class of people and a different, for another class. Of course, the governor went in with the race issue, that, that could be inclusive across the board. However, within the bill that has been structured, we specifically name certain classes of people. If it truly is inclusive of all classes of people, why do we have to name certain other ones? It's almost by naming those that it's saying, well, those are included, but the ones that are not named would not be. So that's, I understand where the governor's coming from. I understand the business community, that they want this possibly. I also understand that, we have constituents on both sides. We will have some that want it, then we have some more grassroots type that question, what it's all about. And that's okay. It's our job to try to get in here and figure out if there's a balance, if there's some amendment that we possibly could do, or if we just don't want to do it at all. It's, I hear a lot of talk too about we're the last state that does not have it. I will tell you this, and it's been weeks ago, but whenever you hear that, whenever you look across the other states that have it, it's not like everybody has a specific hate crime bill. That thing is of such a broad nature, from one extreme to the other extreme, where some of it may be significant or may not be. So, whenever you do look across it, I think you have to, I think the legitimate way to say that is, yes, some people may have some form of a hate crime type bill or enhanced penalty, but, but we need to be very careful just to not to act like we're the only one that doesn't have one item that's across the other states.
It sounds like I hear you saying that there's probably a lot of room for some compromise and some exchange on this subject to get to some sort of place where there is maybe a pretty broad consensus.
At least from my standpoint, we have to be that way. I mean, it's that old saying, if you don't bend some, you break. I'm not for sure if some of our other members, they feel very strongly about this, and I'm talking about very strongly about it. And it will be up to them, whether or not they can get an amendment that they're comfortable with. And then that amendment does not go so far that the ones that are currently for it back away from it. That's just part of the legislative process. That's what we deal with every day, basically every minute.
All right, State Senator Jimmy Hickey is the Senate President. You keep that salty group of guys in line down there, all right?
They try to keep me in line. Let's just put it that way. I appreciate them. And thank you. Appreciate you having me today.
Thanks for your time. We'll be back with more right after this. Talk Business and Politics is sponsored in part by Impact Management Group and...
We have a large commitment to our solar for good reason. It lowers customers' rates. It's emissions-free.
Entergy Arkansas is the largest provider of solar in the state of Arkansas.
Utility-scale solar is much more economic for customers. We're going to operate it. We're going to maintain it. We're going to focus on it. That's what we do for a living.
We want to continue to find ways to partner with our customers to meet their renewable energy goals.
Customers want this. We want to provide it. So our commitment is for the long term.
As a lifelong Arkansan, getting outside has always been a passion of mine. I encourage you to get out too and take advantage of what few other states have to offer.
With numerous lakes and rivers to fish and an abundance of hunting lands, our state is made for outdoor enthusiasts. When you purchase a hunting and fishing license, you support conservation in every corner of the state, preserving our natural wonders for generations to come. So get your license today.
And get out and see why Arkansas is the natural state.
Welcome back to the program. Joining me now is Maureen Glisovic. She is with KATV Channel 7, their senior political reporter, and she leads the 7 on Your Side team, as you can tell by her background there. Maureen, good to see you.
Good to see you, Roby.
Let's talk about up at the Capitol today. We had the governor give his State of the State speech. You were able to listen to that, watch that, as well as gauge reaction to it. Tell me kind of what was the general reaction from the legislature, and then the Democratic Party actually had a press conference to talk about it as well. Give me both of those.
Well, some of the lawmakers that I did speak with, they are very excited to actually get underway with this session, pass bills that are going to help Arkansans, especially due to the pandemic. Some did criticize some of the pieces of legislation, such as the hate crime bill. Not everybody's on board, as we've mentioned in the past. I spoke with Senator Kim Hammer. He's actually one of the people not on board at this point, as is. He mentioned that he would hate to make exceptions for specific groups because he believes that all crimes start with the motive of hate. And that's something that I've heard from numerous lawmakers at this point, is that they're just hesitant to make what they call an exception for special groups. Now, as far as the DPA chairman, Michael John Gray, he definitely touched on and criticized the fact that the governor barely mentioned anything about police reform, police training, or accountability. We know he barely touched on it during his speech, but the chairman mentioned that there are mothers across the state who are worried whether their child will come home because of a broken taillight. So he believes that those are the type of priorities we need to be focusing on as well.
And of course, this is all, that police reform package comes from the whole basically summer of social unrest that we saw across Arkansas. Governor Hutchinson forming a task force to put some of those recommendations in place. We'll see what comes in the actual legislation. Let's talk about one of the biggest topics that will be at the center of debate in this legislative session. It kicks off on Wednesday, and that is the Stand Your Ground legislation that Senator Bob Ballinger is bringing. You've spoken with Senator Ballinger. What's in that bill, and how confident is he that it will clear the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow?
Well, basically part of his bill, what it does is it ends the duty to retreat as long as several factors come into play. You're lawfully present where you're supposed to be. You're not the initial aggressor, or you didn't provoke somebody who started to threaten you with either physical or deadly force. But it essentially allows for people to stand their ground, just like in many other states that Ballinger says they have some type of law in the books. Now, I did ask him if he was confident that this would pass out of committee, and he is extremely confident it will not only pass out of the committee, but it will become law in the state of Arkansas. And as for people who were not paying attention in 2019, this is a similar bill that Senator Ballinger tried to pass in the Judiciary Committee, and it failed. We know that it was one of the most viral moments here in the state of Arkansas was Senator Stephanie Flowers had a very powerful speech speaking against a Stand Your Ground bill. So it's going to be interesting. She's once again on that committee, and he's expected to be just, bringing this up tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, between 2019 and 2021, the Republicans and particularly supporters of Stand Your Ground legislation have really earned a few more seats on that Senate Judiciary Committee, which is where the confidence for it passing in the Senate Judiciary Committee comes. Plus, they've also added some gains in the Senate on the Republican side. The Democrats really, and the people that are opposed, the Moms Demand Group, the people that are opposed to Stand Your Ground, they've got almost a firewall in the House Judiciary Committee. I think there's 9 Democrats on that committee. 10 would block it effectively. So they got to try to pull somebody from the Republican side over. Is that where you're sensing the people that are opposed to Stand Your Ground? Is that really their firewall and their best hope?
I would believe so, because as in previous years, obviously due to the pandemic, we're not going to see a red, see a sea of red t-shirts of Moms Demand Action groups up at the Capitol fighting against a stand your ground bill. So I think that that's going to be one of their last efforts to make sure this doesn't pass. And another criticism from the DPA chairman was the fact that on the third day of session, one of the first bills to be brought up is stand your ground. And he felt that the state had other priorities, especially with vaccine, the vaccine, getting everybody access to the vaccine. So there are many other priorities that he criticized that he definitely said we shouldn't be spending the third day talking about stand your ground.
Well, you will be up there, or you'll be around. I don't know if you'll be up there, but you'll be covering that legislation. You'll be able to read about that at KATV.com, watch it on KATV tomorrow, and you can also catch a story that Maureen will turn with us on talkbusiness.net. Maureen, thank you so much. Appreciate all your help. Looking forward to more from you this session.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, Roby.
All right. And that is all for today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.